Bonjour, my Boltyn fans. That's right, today's video is the Blitz matchup versus Boltyn. Now, this matchup in particular is going to be the Centauri Sabres OTK Boltyn build, and if you haven't seen it before, this is a build that's chasing the double Lumina / double Beacon play with a card that charges with a card to charge, plus potentially one other card in hand, to then combo together with a Courage of Bladehold, potentially pitching into Gallantry Gold as well, into 6 Centauri Sabres attacks for 34 or more damage. Now, this is a deck that some decks just have no play into and have no fighting chance. OTK can be like that sometimes, but as a Levia deck, we actually have pretty good threat turn after turn into Boltyn that is likely enough to start breaking his turtle and deal enough damage that we whittle him down so that when he has that perfect OTK hand, he just can't tank all the damage and has to block. And if you can force him to block down on that turn where he's got the combo assembled, then he just won't win the game. So Levia is a deck that is just absolutely loaded with damage cards that can help us do this. Namely, of course, we have access to our Blood Rush Bellows, which is absolutely insane into this matchup, especially timed perfectly where you just force through their OTK pieces and they have to block with them and they just lose. The other really big damage cards here can be Dread Screamers, especially if comboed with Howl from Beyonds to push more than 12 damage on your turn. You can also really break his turtle with Barraging Beatdowns, of course, combined with your Writhing Beast Hulks. Then you also have pretty interesting interactions with Light Heroes due to Soul Harvest and Doomsday, where Doomsday summons Blasphephet, and when Blasphephet attacks, you can actually banish a shadow card to banish a card from their soul. And this can be very important in this matchup, where Boltyn needs at least 3 cards in soul to pull off his combo. So if you can get Blasphephet out and tick down his soul, then he is in a world of hurt to build that back up again, because he doesn't necessarily like to keep cards to attack with and charge with. Then the last piece of the puzzle here is Soul Harvest, which if it hits will actually banish the entire soul. And if that ever is going to land against a Boltyn, they are absolutely hurting, especially this build that likes to build up, like I said, around 3 to 4 cards in the soul. Now, the real thing to take advantage of is the fact that because they need around 3 to 4 in soul, Boltyn is going to have to keep around 2 cards in hand per turn in the early game so that he can at least build up his soul to the point where he has his combo live at all times. He can also charge his soul more efficiently, though, with Soul Shield and Illuminates, so it can be a bit easier for him to do it than that. But every game is different, so let's just jump in and see how the best 3 went. And welcome to the gameplay portion of today's video. So this is going to be a rather long one. Whenever it is taken to 3 games, it tends to be around an hour or so of gameplay. So, I mean, honestly, that's pretty nice considering that Blitz is timed at 30 minutes around. We're at least not looking at an hour and a half for best 3s to be completed, because normally when Levia loses, it's in glorious fashion, so the games don't really get that drawn out. But not to spoil too much, let's just commentate on what we see. On the left here, we have David, who played Oldhim earlier, but he is a Boltyn devotee. He's been playing Boltyn ever since he started playing back with the kind of like middle of the release of Monarch or so. And he was a huge fan of Raiden to get started, but he's gravitated more towards playing like a mid-range Centauri Sabres build, actually inspired by Josh Lau, if you all know who that is. Fantastic player out of Hong Kong, who gave a lot of tips to David when we met him at Orlando. So shout out to Josh. David's been loving Boltyn, but honestly, this meta is not too kind to Boltyn here, so that's why he switched over to Oldhim. So gameplay-wise, in particular, what we see so far is David winning the die roll and choosing to go first. And Boltyn is a deck that has to attack to start charging that soul, so that's actually beneficial for Levia playing into an OTK strategy like this, because you don't necessarily get that much interaction with OTK decks, but Boltyn at least needs to attack about 2 or 3 times for him to just be able to sit back and build up to that Lumina hand that he oh so desperately wants. So what we see myself doing here, this is my turn 1, and you really want to play aggressive into these OTK decks, especially because of the way Boltyn works. You want to be able to threaten lethal on the turn he wants to pop off with his Lumina combo, so that means you need to have chipped damage as fast as possible, and that really only leaves you open to do so in the early turns because Boltyn needs to build up his soul, which means he needs to keep at least 2 cards to attack and then charge with. So I'm rolling Scabskins there because my hand actually can make use of an extra bit of damage there. And I definitely don't love rolling Scabskins when the only extra damage presentable is a Mandible Claw, but it's a matchup thing in this case where you really do just need to pressure. So, you know, I have the resources for it, so it's not the worst to just risk the roll anyway. So this means my total damage this turn is only 10. Which is nothing crazy. Normally off the double action points, you want to be hitting around 12 or so. But, you know, it's what I can do with a hand like this. So this at least is going to turn off Blood Debt on the swing here. Oh, sorry, that's not even 10. That's 9 total because that's a yellow Hungering Slaughter Beast. But this does set me up to Arsenal the Dread Screamer. So at least that's going to set me up, hopefully, for a 12 damage push on the next turn. And that's really what I'm looking to do here, is make sure that I can string together 12 plus each turn, because the turns that Boltyn wants to keep cards, if I can push through like 6 damage on those turns, which would make sense, he blocks for 2, or blocks with 2 cards to block 6 on my 12 damage, right? So I'm still dealing 6. That's massive, because I need to be able to find a Blood Rush into when he has around 3 cards in Soul, because that's when I need to threaten his ability to just safely pull off the combo. So it does become a little bit draw dependent on me actually having threat on these early turns, because I don't have too much of a window to be able to pressure him before he finds his pieces. Now, this is actually really strong for David here, the fact that he had the Courageous on Engulfing Light, because now he's exactly at 3 cards in Soul, which is enough normally for the Lumina play. You can be safer at 4 cards, especially versus a Levia with Carrion Husk. If the Boltyn goes for the combo with only 3 in Soul, you actually do have the possibility to fully block out before he can give, or rather before he can hit with one of the Sabers to recharge Soul and just give go again to all 6 of the attacks. With Carrion Husk, you actually have the potential to block out the first 3, and then he can't actually combo you for the full 6 swings. So he probably still needs to build up like another 1 soul at least, but he can do it defensively if he just finds a soul shield. So this is not looking great for the clock that he's put me on already. But at least my hand here is going to present 10 damage. This is decent, but the threat that I'm chipping through isn't going to be anything compared to what I need to close this game as of yet, especially since I don't have a great card to Arsenal here. Since it's only the Beast Within, that's a card that you really don't want to be putting in Arsenal. It gains so much more value in hand if you draw a Blood Rush, as well as the fact that if you Arsenal it, it doesn't turn off Blood Debt, so it's really awkward to fit into these mid-game turns. So I hate losing out on Arsenal value. I will normally Arsenal just about anything, but a Beast Within just won't cut it. So unfortunately missing out on the tempo of getting a free Arsenal here and digging a bit deeper. It is going to get out of my hand here, blocking that Centauri Saber. I just don't want to leak too much damage, because in Blitz, it's not so much a possibility to just not take damage and then tank the combo. The combo is just going to be too much damage in Blitz. But still, I don't want to leak anything that I don't have to, right? Especially since the Beast Within wasn't going to go in Arsenal anyway. So this is unfortunately not great for me. By playing the Blue Dread Screamer here into the Ghostly Visit, that's putting 2 non-6s in my graveyard, and if David just doesn't attack my next turn, I may not have a way to instantly fill it with a 6. So I am a little bit worried in this position here, but I do get to Arsenal at least a Barraging Beatdown. The Barraging can force the graveyard to be at 3 at least, but it is not going to turn off Blood Debt, right? So at least David attacks here, and that is really ideal for me, because I need to block with a 6 and get something useful in there. But I've drawn a very strange hand here. I've got the Howl from Beyond, a Ghostly Visit, a Boneyard Marauder, and the Blood Rush. And oh, and look at that. The Arsenal card is actually a Sigil, not the Barraging Beatdown. So another card that's instantly playable to fill the graveyard, but not something I want to do, right? So this hand is super awkward because I don't have the 6 to just toss in the way of this Illuminate, and then another attack that would banish the 6 to turn off Blood Debt. So this is awkward enough that it may have to be a Hope Merchant's Hood turn, just because I really want the 2 attacks in hand right here, and the Blood Rush. Even though it's an amazing card, it is not ideal for where I am in the game because I need an attack in Arsenal to maximize the damage that the Blood Rush can push. So sure enough, on declaration of the Illuminate, I'm going to go ahead and fish around for another 2 attacks. Or rather, not 2 attacks, but at least one other attack. So I'm going to shuffle in the Howl and the Ghostly. I do already have the one Ghostly in loop, so the second one's not doing much here. I'm keeping the Boneyard and the Blood Rush because ideally I can maybe just Arsenal the Blood Rush. But unfortunately, what I'm drawing here doesn't give me that option. Instead, I've got the Ghostly Visit right back in hand, and then a non-block in the Red Deadwood. And that Red Deadwood is looking particularly clunky because I don't have a blue that pairs with it super well. So this is just a super clunky mid-game hand, and it's not what I need to continue the pressure into a Boltyn. Oh, sorry, I didn't redraw the Ghostly. It looks like I redrew the Howl from Beyond. So same thing though. It's just a card I didn't necessarily want to find. It's decent, but the fact that my graveyard once again is full of only non-6s is just really poor for me. And the main issue with it overall is that the 3 cards I have in graveyard are not only misses, but they're also Blood Debt cards. Like with the Howl, the Blue Dread Screamer, and the Ghostly. I'm just not in a great spot here because I could whiff, and it's not like I take 5 Blood Debt. I will likely take more because I'm going to be taking whatever I banish here as well with the Ghostly, Howls, and Dreads. So this is a huge chunk of Blood Debt for me to take mid-game, and it's really not that threatening if he doesn't have the combo right back into this. Because my health is just a resource that's going to disappear anyway if he's able to pull off the combo. It's not like I can really play through that. So I'm going to take 7 Blood Debt on this turn, like guaranteed. But the one thing that is going for me here is that I'm actually able to set up the Blood Rush. But from the way he blocks here, I'm absolutely terrified because he decides to not block. And what does that mean? That normally means the Boltyn player has the combo. So sure enough, I believe this is like turn 3, right? Boltyn already has the combo set up, and if they get it this quickly, I mean, there's really not much you can do. There's just not much interacting when they hit the combo this early, because you just haven't had enough time to break down their blocking capabilities. So I kind of know what's coming here, but I have to play as if it's not this turn. So I'm blocking 4 because I want to block 1 over in case he beacons. Because if he beacons, he really shouldn't banish 2 to put him at 5. Instead, he would banish 1 to put him at 4. So that's what I'm blocking here. And he's not going to banish 2 because that would put him at not enough soul to effectively play through and pull off the combo. He'll run out of the ability to give the Centauri's a go again. So I'm hoping that the other card he has there is a Lumina, but it turns out it is actually another Beacon, so he's forced to give it another +1 anyway, so my block doesn't really outsmart this play. It's just what he had here, so he is going to hit with that Bolt of Courage, which will draw him a card. Now, he is a little short on soul, so in my mind I'm thinking, okay, I actually have the capability here of not taking all 6 Centauris and just dying. But then the issue becomes I need to survive the first 2 Lumina attacks and then still have a way to turn off Blood Debt. And the main issue right now is my arsenal is not a way to turn off Blood Debt. So that means I need to keep 2 cards in hand to turn off Blood Debt and yet still block 2 of these Centauri swings. So it's really not likely that this can happen. In fact, as we see this play out, it's just not something that can happen. But you gotta dream sometimes. So that's the position we're in. We're just dreaming. Meanwhile, David is just pulling off the combo, easy as pie over here. Snapdragon's giving that bolt of courage go again. So at least we'll get to see all the pretty things that Boltyn can do. So if you haven't seen the combo before, it is coming to you live. Well, not live, but pre-recorded right here for your pleasure. So it goes double Lumina to give all the Centauris +1 or +2 total, and let them each attack 2 more times. So that is 6 total swings on the Centauri. He can also then break Gallantry Gold. Gallantry Gold is going to give the Centauris another +1. So that's going to make them swing in for 5 each, and then he breaks Courage, which lets the Centauris swing for free. So in total, unblocked, you're looking at what is that? 5, blah, blah, what am I saying? 30 damage minimum on that because they're coming in for 5 damage 6 times. But then you also have to factor in the damage that was pushed on that first attack, which a lot of the times is just unblocked by most people. So that's where the 34 or more comes from, because the Centauris can also get buffed from their own effect if you block with an attack action, and the Boltyn effect when you block with an attack action. So it's really insane damage. So on the first swing, I'm blocking with Husk, because if they don't hit, they don't get to recharge the soul. And you can't see it on screen because of the handcam's in the way here, but David only has 1 more soul. So the issue here is that I'm still going to die here because I'm forced to block with 3 cards, because the 5 would go to 7 on the double buff because of the Centauri and Boltyn effect. So I have to block with all 3, otherwise that hits and refills his soul, and he'll just get to string the entire thing together. So instead, on the third swing, I'm going to take the full 6, and he doesn't get to swing again, but this is the other lose condition that Levia has, right, is I will just die to Blood Debt. So David playing very smart there, went for the combo, potentially even earlier than some other players would, but that is the lose condition of Levia, taking Blood Debt. So he played extra aggressive on that combo turn, and it worked out. So we're going to jump into game 2 here. And I am choosing to go first in this matchup, and I like going first, but it's also because Boltyn wants to start off with a free turn of just charging his soul. I don't want to give that to him, so going first here does a couple things for me. I actually found the Sigil. Sigil's not like too important in this matchup, really, because they're going to over damage you on their combo turn anyway. But what does happen for me there is just the extra graveyard fill with the Sigil, and then Wrecker Romp actually discards a Ghostly as well. So already I'm at 3 cards in graveyard, and one of them is a recursion piece. So I'm looking pretty happy with that turn 1, even though I lost out on an Arsenal card. So on his attack turn here, David is just charging his soul a little bit, because that's what the Boltyn deck is trying to do. And really not too threatening. I can definitely take that damage if I want to, but once again, like, it is free graveyard fill for me, so that is the other thing to always consider. Now, I'm rolling Scabskins here, but I actually think it's a mistake, because Ghostly is not a guaranteed hit, because I now have 4 cards in graveyard, so that was just not correct. I hate doing that, like I said previously, where you just hope that you banish the Ghostly, rather than have it guaranteed. Now, it is possible that in this matchup you kind of just should play greedier because you need to push the damage, but even if I hit the 2 action points, look at that, I didn't even banish the Ghostly, so yeah, just not the correct line at all. I just risked something I didn't have to. So instead, I'm just coming in for 6, and I have a decent card to Arsenal. The Barraging Beatdown is better later in the game, for sure, when they are potentially holding a combo piece in hand in addition to whatever's in Arsenal. And if you can Barraging on those turns and really mess them up, then it can just absolutely hurt their ability to end the game, because you're going to be tossing around their hand, and they might have to block with a combo piece just to survive lethal, and that feels great. Now, as we see David here, he's got that Lumina in hand, so this is what I'm talking about, where they sometimes just sit on a card in hand and a card in arsenal. Now, I don't think David should really go for that because he only has that one card in soul right now, so this would be very premature in trying to just hold pieces. But his arsenal card may be something he can cycle out. I didn't quite see what it is. Now, he comes in with a slower play here, just trying to interrupt me with the Command and Conquer. And I actually have a hand that can't easily block the Command and Conquer. I have a Reckless Swing and 2 non-blocks. So that is not something that can block the CNC, and I definitely don't want to just lose my arsenal for no reason. The barraging beatdown is decent enough that like I don't just want to take the damage and lose it. I want to maintain the arsenal advantage, especially a card that could potentially present 4 damage. So going to go ahead and Hope Merchants here. I do believe I hold the Sigil in hand, and that's because it instantly fills Graveyard, plus there is the chance that if I just sit at 26 life, perhaps that actually is enough combined with Husk to survive the combo, because the combo is going to be around 34 damage, and at 26 life plus the Husk, plus let's say like blocking with 2 cards, then that puts you at, what, 38 blocking power total? Or rather, 38 life on that turn. So maybe you just survive it. I mean, that is a decent line to play for, at least. So the cards I draw into aren't anything crazy, but it at least lets me hold the Barraging Beatdown in hand. And this isn't like a great 2-card hand by any means, especially in a deck that normally is fine blocking. But at least it lets me present 7 and does interact a little bit with David's ability to block. Because the one thing you can catch him on here is perhaps they really wanted certain cards in the hand early, like charge cards. And as we see here, he's got a charge card and a Lumina. And those are cards he really doesn't want to block with. So I did catch him in a decent spot here to actually be punished by the barraging. And I do get to arsenal the Sigil and pretend that it's something more deadly than it is. So there we go. He is going to block with one of the charge cards because he can't lose the other one. He needs the other one to go ahead and fill soul. So he will take some damage on that play. I'm not sure that was necessarily correct. Free damage is something that the Boltyn player should be very wary about taking. But he is just playing towards that soul count, and this is what I mentioned earlier, right? He's holding that Lumina several turns in a row, so this is dangerous for him, because if I start stringing together bigger turns, then if he only tries to block with 3 cards each turn, he will leak damage. Now, what I said about getting to 26 life, well, I guess that really wasn't the plan at all, because I go ahead and just take that. But it is for good reason. I have a Blood Rush turn set up here, and with him at 16, I have the potential to really lay on the hurt, especially since I've been tracking here that he's not blocking with one of these cards. So that means if I can slam into him with a Blood Rush turn, and he only blocks with 3 cards, I might push, like 9 damage on this turn, which would be incredible. So we're just going to lead with Mandible Claws. This isn't an amazing turn by any means. I don't quite have enough to string together Claws attack. Looks like I have the Deadwood Rumbler blue, the Endless Maw red, and then another red attack. Didn't quite see what it was. So that means this Blood Rush is not quite 18, it's just 16 damage, but that's still quite above the curve. So coming in for the 11 here, I believe it's guaranteed. I might have enough misses in there that it can miss, but I definitely don't want to Sigil first here because I don't want to get to the point where I missed the 3 damage on the Endless Maw. So sure enough, I do hit on the Endless Maw, but that looks like quite a few hits there. I hit all 3, so my graveyard's probably in pretty poor shape. It's probably like 2 non-blocks or something like that. So let's take a look here. That is a miss, hit, I do believe. So the graveyard is not in a good place for me anymore, but at least I'm pretty handily in the lead to not worry too much about taking Blood Debt here. And that last card in hand is actually another red Barraging Beatdown, so we're just going to cycle out that Sigil, put the Barraging back, and hope that it can push through more damage. That last barraging was very successful, so perhaps the second one will be as well. And what did I say about David keeping those cards in hand? Well, he is once again leaking massive damage because he's holding that Lumina. And so I'm going to take advantage of this as I can. I mean, him holding it means he's really just threatening the combo already. So that is just terrifying to see. But if I can just keep on the pressure and at least threaten lethal, he's only got one more equipment block in that skull cap because he can't block with the courage again because he needs it for his combo and his gallantry's out. So I'm really hoping here that I can just keep stringing together threat because presenting at least 12 is not the hardest thing to do. Unfortunately, I'm leading with a blue Dread Screamer, which is not the biggest threat. Now, luckily, I do hit the go again there. I definitely could have missed, and this was just a rough position overall, but I need some way to start clearing the grave, so I believe the plan here is to just clear it all out if I can. Now, David does have the combo, and it's pretty easy to read from a position like this. That's what he's got. So I just need to present 7, or he is just going to keep this hand and then potentially lethal me. So I need to push as much damage as I can. So rolling Scabskins here. I have the Ghostly set up, so I was always going to roll it in this position anyway. And I'm very rewarded with rolling a 6. A 6 in this position, I hope I can use it all. It looks like I've got the Doomsday in hand to at least pay for 2 claws, and then another, whatchamacallit, Beast Within to pay for the Ghostly. So that 6 at least is playable if I decide to. And the tricky thing you can do here is now if David's expecting lethal, I can potentially play Claw into Ghostly into barraging on the 3rd Claw. And because he will have blocked a bit now, it could just be game. It really comes down to now whether or not he blocks this Ghostly being the answer here. Can I push lethal or not? And he decides yes. He's going to block the full 4. So now I do get to punish this with the barraging. So red barraging, fantastic. This is going to basically guarantee that I push the extra 4 damage because I know that card in Arsenal is not a defense reaction because he's been sitting on it with a card in hand. So it's definitely a combo piece. So this Mandible Claw comes in for 7 for free here. And both those cards in hand were combo pieces. And I was lucky enough to hit the Beacon instead of the Lumina because once he blocks with the Lumina, he just doesn't have the combo available to him anymore because there's only 2 in the deck. Whereas if I'd banished the Lumina and he blocks with Beacon, then at least the 2 Luminas are still there. So just going to go ahead and cut the video down here because once the combo wasn't available to David, it just became a slow trickling death as I did everything I could to break through him just blocking 12 or more each turn. So you're just going to say it was like 8 minutes of our lives here because we don't need to see all that, but Levia will secure this game. It was just a matter of time. David didn't really have the fallback option of trying to play aggro now because he was just too far behind on life and the combo was gone. So instead, it's just a relentless onslaught as Levia pushes to end the game. So with the Howl from Beyond on the Dread Screamer, I was coming in for 9, and that will be followed up by the Ghostly Visit for 13 total on a turn, and that kind of math will win you games. So did pick up game 2 there, and then we jump into game 3. So here we are, Boltyn at 1 win, Levia at 1 win. Who will take it? I mean, I like to say this matchup is very Levia favored, but Boltyn can also just get his combo by like turn 3 and absolutely win the game. So let's see if it'll happen this game. I'm not going to spoil the ending here, but David losing game 2 does decide to go first. So I'm going to do what I can to go ahead, fill the graveyard, and I do have a Sigil, so might as well burn that to draw the extra card. Now, this is a decent turn 1 hand for me. I do have the red Deadwood, which is amazing, like basically right now, and that's about it. So I'm going to roll Scabskins because it's exactly the right time to use it. I just need to play aggro. I just need to push damage when I can. And because I have the Deadwood Rumbler, there's always the opportunity as well to draw, discard a 6, and then that will actually turn on your Mandible Claws, giving them go again. So all of a sudden, 2 action points instead of 2 attacks can turn into 4 attacks if you have the pitch for it. So with my hand here, I only have the 1/6, but it is a beast within. So if David hits it, and kaboom, he does, this is actually probably going to be an amazing turn, because now I get the Deadwood effect, and I have a Ghostly Visit in Banish Zone, so I can go ahead, target the Ghostly Visit, and that can then be strung together with my Mandible Claws here for an insane, would that be 12, 15, 18 damage turn 1. So let's see if I've got the pitch for it, which, I mean, I definitely do. Getting that blue from the Beast Within was fantastic. I also have the Barraging Blue in hand as well. So coming in for 8 on the Deadwood. You don't always get amazing turns like this, but, David had that amazing, turn, 4 or so combo, so why can't I have some fun? Give me the good turns. And sure enough, this is a good one. So now he blocks 8, 2 cards down, a piece of equipment down, and I'm coming in for 3 with go again. Still just pushing relentlessly here. So David should be pretty scared, because at minimum from what he sees on the board, I can at least follow up with another 4 damage with the Ghostly. And if I have at least 1 yellow pitch in hand, then it's going to be a Claws as well. And so sure enough, the Claws comes in. And I also caught David with a 2 block in hand, so I'm just pushing more damage than I really deserve to be here. So he's going to take, 5 total on this turn, and full blocked. And I get to arsenal a card, so this really went as best as you could possibly hope for on a turn 1. And, these highs are why I love Levia, because you can just pull some crazy combos that go beyond just, I'm a deck that abuses Blood Rush. No. Levia has more cool interactions than that, and this was definitely one of them. So that was just kind of fantastic. Pushed 5 damage, basically skipped David's entire turn. He's just going to draw pass. So I do have the graveyard full as well for a potential to have a pretty good turn 2 here. Now, unfortunately, my hand is a bit of a clunky mess. I have too many blues to really do anything too effective here. So I have a Blue Dread Screamer to lead things off, which it's a decent card. If I could just play as many reds as I wanted to, I mean, gosh, the entire deck would be like Red Dread Screamers. That card is so good. But instead, gonna have to just stick with the blue because it's what I've drawn. And there was no way to actually miss the Banish there anyway, because I only had the 2 misses in the Ghostly and the Sigil. So I'm never gonna play that Sigil and Arsenal first, because I don't want to give myself the 3 misses, right? Now, this isn't going to be an amazing turn by any means, but it is going to at least come in for 8 unless I decide to roll Scabskins. I don't quite remember if I do here, because once again, I only like to do it if the damage difference is 4, but I can already come in for the Ghostly Visit, so that means the Scabskins action would actually only be 3 damage, so I don't think it's necessarily worth it. Because really what I want to do here is get that Blood Rush in Arsenal to set up for my next turn to just slam David with more damage, because David is very behind already. He needs to at least get 2 more cards in Soul, and he's behind on life, and he's used one of his blocking equipment already, so I don't quite see a threat coming from David's side right now. It's going to take him like another couple turns for me to be really scared of what his deck can do. So I'm going to go ahead and unfortunately put 3 misses in the graveyard here, which isn't ideal, but my blood debt's actually at 0, so it's really not the worst time to go ahead and fill that sucker up. By holding the blue Deadwood in hand, I'm also guaranteeing the 2 parts of a Blood Rush turn that I need, which are 6s in hand and a blue, so it's a very safe card to hold there. And I actually do draw into just like a beautiful Blood Rush hand. I've got that Ivophidia to pitch, and then the Deadwood can fulfill either requirement, right? The pitch or the discard. In this case, it's definitely going to be in hand to be discarded. Via the Vanguard is then going to swing back in, and David's actually choosing a interesting line here. Because his Via the Vanguard is coming in for 5 base, he can just go ahead and forcefully give it go again without me blocking and giving it the plus. So he can now actually threaten my Husk if he decides to keep going and push through, lose all the soul, and just go via the Vanguard, Centauri, Centauri. Now, I am a little bit disturbed by this line because you normally don't see these combo players risking their soul like this, but David sees his opening to threaten my Husk, and he's going to take it. I don't quite know if this was correct or not, but you can pivot this build to be more mid-range. I mean, it still just has all the good stuff that a Boltyn likes to run anyway. So David kind of recognizing that he's already really behind, and he needs to go ahead and put pressure and force the game plan to be something other than the combo, because he just didn't even have a combo piece yet. So interesting read by David on the situation there, because David plays a lot of Boltyn, and like I mentioned earlier, he gets a lot of tips from Josh Lau as well, and Josh is another fantastic Boltyn player who does a lot of plays like that, where he's going to switch up the OTK strategy to actually push aggressive at times and then fall back on just like tempoing out Luminas instead of the double Lumina. So David trying a risky line. Now, unfortunately, he doesn't force my Blood Rush to be... I guess he just doesn't force my Husk out in the end anyway. I do get to block with a card and throw Scabskins as well to not take damage for the Husk. It does interrupt my Blood Rush turn a little bit, but I still get to force it with the 3 cards I had left in hand, which is, always decent. I mean, especially with the Eye of Ophidia to help sculpt what I draw. I know that at least I'm going to get a Claws and then an attack off. And versus David, who's now committed to kind of racing aggro-wise, I'm just like totally okay throwing out Claws and an attack. I don't have to go overwhelming with my damage here to try to crack a turtle strat, because that doesn't seem to be what David's going for anymore. So now I'm just coming in for 18 total on this Blood Rush turn, which is fantastic. I mean, I don't have Blood Debt here, so whatever I banish on the Boneyard Marauder is really not a big deal. Now, it is clearing 2 misses, which I absolutely love. I wouldn't have mind clearing 3 misses there, because then I wouldn't have any Blood Debt, but we are going to tick that up a little bit. Now we see that by presenting 18, that just really foiled David's plan on switching to aggro, because he had to block there or just die. So yeah, just very unfortunate for David how this entire last turn sequence has lined up for him. And meanwhile, in my position, I just have everything going my way. That Blood Rush was perfect, and it even let me Arsenal and Endless Maw. So I just have all kinds of lines for damage opened up to me here, but I drew a bit of a dud hand to keep being as aggressive as I want to be. So here is another huge benefit of Hope Merchant's Hood over Ebonfold. I'm just digging here for the pressure that I want to end the game, whereas Ebonfold just wouldn't even give me that route. It would just be there to try to turn off Blood Debt when I otherwise couldn't. So this is why I love Hope Merchant's Hood. I want the most amount of lines open to me as possible when I'm playing this deck, because Levia tends to already be a deck that has these crazy decision trees that stem from Scabskins to your Banish Zone to how your graveyard's looking to what you have in Arsenal. I mean, she can really get complicated, and Hope Merchant's Hood is just another decision line that I love to have available to me, because not only is it something you can think about every turn, whether you're on offense or defense, but it can also then shape how you play forward with whatever you redraw with Hope Merchant's Hood. And I think it's a great way to kind of show your skill expression with the deck, even if you don't necessarily get lucky drawing exactly what you need on Hope Merchant's Hood. You can always work with all kinds of Levia hands. The only thing that really sucks is an all red hand, and so that's the other reason the Hope Merchants is there, is to try to protect you from that. So now we see the Hope Merchants. It dug me towards the resources I wanted to go ahead and play the Endless Maw with the Howl, and I wanted to hit the resources there because Endless Maw coming in with Howl is 12, which basically demands block with 2 cards or you lose. And even just blocking with 2 is going to mean I deal a massive chunk of damage and just get to continue this relentless onslaught. So David just has no route to win anymore. He is really hard pressed to pursue either strategy that he tried for. whether it be the OTK that he started out with or then kind of that aggro plan he switched to in the mid game. He still has not broken Husk, and he's just so far on the back foot. It is just not likely to go his way. So I am totally fine seeing these turns just draw pass, draw pass. It's definitely not fun for your opponent when Levia is this oppressive, but you don't just get here out of nowhere. You've got to play the early game really well with Levia, because you don't just like present this crazy damage and get this ahead without interacting with your opponent properly. It's not like your Briar or Chain or something that just can decide to not block and pursue their game plan of just crazy aggro hands. You do need to play in that back and forth pattern until you find your route to get ahead on the trades. So that was, of course, the lines we took this game to get us where we are, and I always enjoy being ahead when you do take the heavy trade route. So unfortunately with that Dread Screamer, I did miss. I had 3 hits, 3 misses. Or no, 2 hits, 4 misses, so it was definitely not likely that I hit there. Now, I'm not going to die from this Chunk of Blood Debt, and it is still technically lethal, so I'm forcing at least a card out of David's hand. Now, I will take this Blood Debt chunk, so it's going to force out my Husk no matter what, so that means even though David's going to keep a decent hand here, I will just toss Husk in front of whatever he throws at me because it's going to disappear anyway. So it's not the end of the world, but, you know, we see that Blood Debt coming through. Thank goodness it wasn't lethal just yet, because I don't want to lose a game where I'm this ahead. So David now in the position where he has a turn at least. Of course, we know it's not going to amount to much because of the Carrion Husk that's there. So that just means, for the most part, we just don't want to put ourselves in a spot where we now are at lethal to die to Blood Debt. So this will require some blocking. Now, the beauty of blocking with cards like Carrion Husk or non-attacks versus Boltyn is that, of course, they don't give the attacks the +1 from Boltyn's ability. So he can't just give it go again with the soul that he immediately charges with. So, you know, honestly, I think that would have been an opening for David to go ahead and Snapdragons that and go ahead play 1 Illumina out. I kind of would have liked to see that line because David needs to do something, and that actually would have been a wide enough turn to really punish the fact that I have Blood Debt as high as I do here, because he didn't have a ton of soul, so he really would have just come in probably for 2 Centauri attacks instead of the 4, because he just can't give them all go again. But, you know, that is not the line he decided to go for. I'm not even sure if it would have won in the game. I just would have had to block with like 1 more card, and that would have been it. I would have taken a little bit of a hit. Now, on the flip end, though, I actually do have a Blood Rush turn here. So this is, this is going to be a ton of damage coming to David. I played the barraging, of course, to go ahead and make it so that the Blood Rush was live in hand. And so he was forced to block pretty inefficiently on that first claw swing. And then, of course, in my mind, unless he has a defense reaction in Arsenal, he's also just dead, because by taking that card out of hand, he won't be able to block 6 on this 8 power Hungering that's coming in. But as he's about to play here, he does have a Fate Foreseen. So he does get to cover up 7 on that 8 attack. He's going to go to 3, which unfortunately is not lethal then. He sticks around, and I get to set up Arsenal with a Ghostly, which is honestly a pretty weak Arsenal target. There's the consideration there to maybe just leave it in hand because it's decent to block with, but my graveyard's actually not great in terms of the 6s that are in there. So with him just drawing and passing back into me, I'm just going to use this opening to once again push damage, because it definitely at least is going to equal 4 damage with that Ghostly Arsenal. Now, I did roll a 1 on the Scab Skins, which is terrifying because that's how you just lose the game, a 1 into a 1, and it definitely was possible. But fortunately for me, I don't hit that 1 into a 1. The, what is it, a 1 in 32 chance for that to happen. Instead, I just get to slow down on my game plan here, Coming in with an Endless Maw is no laughing matter. It's definitely still a tall attack. And if I take 3 cards out of David's hand, then he probably can't really do much because Boltyn normally needs at least 2 cards to pose some kind of threat where he plays an attack and then charges a card. So he'll have Arsenal and a card left in hand if he decides to full block on this Endless Maw. Now I also could just completely die here as well with whiffing on the graveyard banishes. So, you know, this game is getting a little bit out of hand in the fact that I wasn't able to close when I wanted to on that Hunkering Slaughter Beast turn. I'm now just opening myself up to potentially losing. I've lost both my Blood Rushes, so it's going to be a bit harder to push through and find lethal. So now we're just going to kind of keep hoping that I don't die to Blood Debt and find a dominate effect of some kind, and that will be my win con here, because without Blood Rush, it is pretty hard to kind of crack that final push of damage. You're just dependent on your dominate effects, which I definitely have plenty of in the deck, so that's really not that scary. I do think I should have overpitched on that Endless Maw and went ahead and got the Sink Below out of there, because that Sink Below is just not a card I need at all right now, so I think that was definitely a misplay. I would have rather cycled that card to find something better. But unfortunately, not the line I took there. You know, the other reason to do it, though, would be the fact that I don't have the Hope Merchant's Hood anymore, so I need to dig for ways to turn off Blood Debt at all. So yeah, definitely poor choice. I might just be getting a bit frantic here because I hate when I'm in positions like this where the graveyard's in a poor spot and I can just die to Blood Debt. It's really not what you want to happen in these games, that you feel like you've been doing everything else correctly. But it'd be props to David if, you know, that is how the game turns out, because he chose to play that aggro turn, and that aggro turn did push enough damage to where I am under threat of self-kill here. So his early game strat might actually come back and win him the game. So very good call on his end. Now, I do have enough pitch to try to do the Howl from Beyond into the Writhing Beastalk, but I have exactly 2 misses in the graveyard here, so I really don't want to give myself that lose condition, because right now I'm guaranteed to at least present damage, turn off Blood Debt, and that is good enough in my book. I could try to high roll, hit the 9 attack, dominate, but then, like I said, if I just miss the Blood Debt, I lose the game. So I can't do it. So instead, we're going to go ahead with just 6 dominate, and this will not win the game. He does have 4 block available to him in a card from hand, plus the Courage of Bladehold. So I'm just trying to trim my graveyard so that I have better dominate turns, or rather Howl from Beyond turns coming up later. So that's all we're doing here. That's all we're doing. We have 1 miss in the graveyard right now, and that's what we want. We want to not block with any misses on this next turn so that I'm free to howl. And went ahead and just cropped it down a bit again because wanted to save us, once again, like 5 minutes of our lives. Basically, game just went as I said, showed you all the scary bits, but then I was back in control of the graveyard and kept going for about a couple turns there, but did get to finish it off with a Reckless for game. So GG's to David. I think he played really well, and I just love the guy.